Hi, welcome back or welcome to my channel if you're new. My name is Laura. Hi, hello, welcome. It's time for my September update to my No Pan Left Behind. This is all of the palettes that I have fully No Pan Left Behind did in the month of September, and we just talk about changes to my palette collection, eyeshadow collection, that kind of thing in this video. So I will link my last one up in the cards up there. We kind of switched the style, and I'm just again shooting from the hip on how I want this filmed this month. My goal this year is to touch every single eyeshadow in my collection at least one time to successfully No Pan Left Behind my collection. I think what I'm going to do is once the new year hits, I'm going to start fresh again and try to touch everything like we did this year. Let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed seeing this series on my channel. It wasn't really like a project, but more of like a how's it going? How am I using things? In my last update, I talked about having a palette in my sights that I seemingly couldn't get out of my mind, and I am unhappy to report that I did actually bring it into my collection. You would have seen this in both my eyeshadow bank and my trash it and cash it videos that I brought this into my collection. Then I also did receive a palette in PR from Fantasy Cosmetica. I am very, very grateful and thankful to be on their PR list, and I am happy to say I do have an affiliate code with Fantasy Cosmetica. But this is what the Warlock palette looks like. It is so freaking cute. This, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that this is also like magnetic because I can take the shades out and put them into magnetic palettes. This shade in particular is very unique to my collection. I don't have anything quite as cool tone acidic as this. The other shade I have that's similar is definitely more like yellow green versus this is really like a cool toned green. Gorgeous. This shade, incredible. I like how it's kind of set in pairs and then you have a black to deepen everything out. This palette is stunning. I have only swatched the shimmers. Like, this looks so incredible. Oh my gosh. That's the shade Ritual. Incredible. That's like a really deep jeweled multi-chrome. And then Arcanum. I'll just swatch the greens out real quick and then we'll just move on from talking about this. But I am so happy that this came into my life over the past month. Did I need it? No. I'm always really surprised when Fantasy Cosmetica drops every release, and I swear every packaging gets better and better. They just redid the Druid packaging as well, and I would lie if I said I didn't want to get the updated packaging, but neither here nor there. So happy to have both of these new palettes into my collection. Unfortunately, my collection did grow by 27 additional shades over the course of this past month, but I'm not upset about it. That's not as bad as I have done in the past. I do also want to mention that I am doing a new eyeshadow bank project as well, where you'll hear me talk a little bit more in detail on like the consequences of bringing new eyeshadows into my collection. I am on an eyeshadow low buy now, so I am going to really be curbing my spending and really focusing in my eyeshadow bank video on like usage and palettes, that kind of thing. I did have some palettes in my rotation the past month that I wanted to focus on. I had a very humble stack of palettes and really try to No Pan Left Behind some of these palettes that have just been more challenging for me to reach for, especially something like this, where this is 30 freaking shades of eyeshadow in this, so it was a long time coming to use every shade in this palette. So we will start off by talking about this one. This is the Bare Necessities palette by Colourpop, and I took a shade out and replaced it with a pan of eyeshadow because it's in my project pan, but this is the Bare Necessities palette minus that shade there. But this is such a pretty palette. I'm so happy that I ended up using this over the course of the month, and I am happy to say that I did No Pan Left Behind this palette in its entirety. I feel like I really reached for these shades quite often over the course of the month. A lot of these like darker shades I just used as a liner and called it a day. So it wasn't like the most glorious usage that I got with this palette, but I did have a lot of really good staple looks to wear to the office on the regular. Then the next palette that we were focusing on over the course of the past month was the Natasha Denona My Dream palette. This guy here. This is, again, another nice neutral palette with some like warm, like transitional summer to autumn shades with like some of these like deeper, grungier, autumnal kind of shades. But this was really fun to reach for in the month of September. Like, this duochrome was so pretty, and it worked really well with my current Project Level Up palette. So I was really happy to reach for every single shade in this palette, minus this one. I did not reach for this one this past month, but I had reached for it before. So I finally No Pan left behind this guy. The last palette we were focusing on in the month of September is this guy here. This is my Adept and Heather Austin palette, and I am really bummed to say I did not meet my goal to No Pan left behind this, but I think it was because I was reaching for more neutrals and not really wanting to reach for these like depthy tones that much throughout the past month. I think what I'm going to do is maybe, do I want to leave this on my desk? I don't know. Maybe I'm just going to set this to the side and see what I feel like when we get to the palettes I want to focus on. There have been a couple palettes lingering that I've been wanting to No Pan left behind, and it's been a little unsuccessful the past couple months, but there's one that I did my usage in a couple months and one that's taken me so long to touch every shade in. So we'll start with the one that didn't take as long of time because I feel like it's a less success story. But that is this guy here. This is my Natasha Denona Sunrise palette. I had this in my rotation last month and I reached for it a couple times back at the beginning, like very beginning of the year, and just kind of set this back. Really did most of my focus on it this past month and the month prior. And I'm happy to say I finally did No Pan left behind this palette as well. So I can happily tuck this into my collection knowing that I have reached for every single shade of eyeshadow in this palette this year. I'm really happy about it. This palette really intimidates me as a color story in its whole, but when I use one or two shades, I always really love the look, so I need to just get over my weird hang up with this palette and use it. Something that I've been trying to focus on and use since April, and I finally used the last shade that I needed to use this past week. This is my Plain Jane Remastered by Adept Cosmetics, and this is what that palette looks like now. I have two pans in this palette, which makes me super excited. This red shade was in my Pan Those Eyeshadows earlier this year, and then this shade was in a Pan Those Eyeshadows a couple years ago. But I had to use this shade here and this shade here the past month, and I finally used those two shades and met my No Pan left behind goal on this palette finally. I did want to mention a small other success that I did have over the course of this month, but I guess it's kind of ruined now that Warlock has come into my life. But before this came into my life, like 4 days ago, I did actually finally touch every single palette in my collection, even the ones that I had not previously reached for. I have touched every single palette in my collection. Now I am down to one palette needs to be touched is all that is left in my collection, and I'm leaving the spoiler to like my palettes I'm going to be focusing on, but this is going to be one of the palettes that I'll have left on my desk to use this month. But I'm excited that this is the palette. This is the only palette in my collection I haven't reached for, and it's going to be used this month. Now that we've kind of spoiled it with Warlock here, let's talk about my other focus palettes for the rest of the month of October. Like I mentioned, I am going to be having the Too Faced Maple Syrup Pancakes on my desk. I am trying to do a full review on this palette, use all the shades, but I do have a few other palettes in front of me, this little humble stack. And so, yeah, you know what? Because I have this humble stack, I am actually going to leave Heather Austin out on my desk. It's such a pretty color story, and it's perfect for this time of year. We have some of these like darker tones for like when it's super, super gloomy out. October, it happens for us in Michigan. Days get super, super short. And then I have a ton of shades inside of my BYOP. I have a ton of shades in there. Inspired by the Hella palette, and then I just filled her up with literally so many shades to just reach for throughout the course of the month. Then another one that has only a few shades until I meet my goal for No Pan left behind is this guy here. This is the Natasha Denona Mini Nude palette. I hit pan on the shimmer shades in this palette. I say quote unquote organically. I was focusing on them, but I wasn't like digging in them. But I did hit pan in those 3 shimmer shades, and I would like to just see what I can do over the course of the month. The only shade that I have used this year is this guy here, this matte shade. So I need to use the 3 shimmers and then the darker brown. I can definitely do that. Kind of tying in with the more neutrals and something that I figured I could wear to work. It's Fantasy Cosmetica's neutral palette, and I've been planning on using this all like the past couple months. I've been planning on rolling this in for October, and I'm super excited about it. I think this is going to be great to wear to work. It's kind of like a grungy neutral palette. I don't know what Jordan did. Jordan, the owner of Fantasy Cosmetica, has made the most shiny, spectacular eyeshadows in this palette. They are the shiniest neutrals. Oh my goodness. They're so impactful. They're just so wet and foiled. They're incredible. I'm super, super pumped. I'm just for good measure, the purple also. The next palette is another one that only has a few shades remaining until I hit my no pan left behind goal. And that is this guy here. This is the Leather and Lace by Unearthly. I always feel like I flip-flop the words. This is the Leather and Lace palette by Unearthly Cosmetics. This is such a pretty palette. It's a pretty big palette for only having 12 shades. Like, I'm going to hold up my Natasha Denona midi palette with it. And it's bigger than a Natasha Denona midi. These pans are humongous in this. But this, I only have to use this middle column and then the shimmery purple shade in this palette. And I think some of these neutral toned and like these grungy tone mattes, especially like these greens, I can incorporate with all of the other palettes that I'm going to have out in my collection, and especially my BYOP. So we have so many other shades to use and supplement into these looks and these palettes. So that's why I feel like I'm okay only having a few palettes out on my desk in like this multitude of singles. I'm really trying to allow myself to use my collection and really trying to get myself out of that mindset of like only use your Project Pan stuff. I have been really bad about doing that again this year. I started off like trying to use my collection as a whole and then just got sidetracked and like pigeonholed myself with Project Pan only. I'm trying to stretch my usage out and try to use as much of my collection as possible. I spent the money on a lot of things in my collection, and I don't know why I'm like hesitant to use the beautiful things. It's like, no, save it, save it. So I'm really working to change that mindset and use my collection. And I think my eyeshadow low buy, my eyeshadow bank video will help me with that. And this will help me just stay focused on my goals. But that is it for this No Pan Left Behind update. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you are tracking your pans and your usage like this. Let me know how you are doing this year with your usage in your collection, whether it be your tracking usage in eyeshadows. Maybe you have a lot of foundations or blushes and you're trying to fluctuate them. Let me know how your I don't know what I'm trying to say. Let me know how you're doing this year with using your collection. Anyway, that is it for this video. I hope you guys are staying healthy, sane, and safe, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye!